Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video.
The crying child's name has been found. That's right, we finally have an answer for a question that has
I'm pretty sure I know exactly where this is going.
Literal decade. And the craziest part of all of it, it was solved by a channel with only one video. Matt must be rolling in his retirement grave.
We'll just see about that.
Doesn't he come back in this video? I mean, it's called
Hello,
featuring
Internet.
MatPat.
Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's happy to let someone else solve FNAF for a change. Since the release of Security Breach, it feels like there's been a massive new wave of FNAF theorizing on YouTube. We've seen the rise of people like John FNAF, Rye Toast, ID's Fantasy, and dozens more, all joining us in the good fight to try and solve the infuriating lore of this franchise. And just over a month ago, a new challenger, or should I say challengers, entered the ring. The channel Dual Process Theory, and they went big for their first outing, making the claim that they'd solved the entirety of FNAF in their very first video. And not only were they laying down a timeline for the whole
I'm gonna be
series,
honest, I didn't even watch that video. I just heard a few random things that people said, and a lot of people told me to watch it, and I was like, no.
they also claim to have solved a particular mystery that has been bugging us theorists for a long time. What is the name of the crying child? After nearly 10 years, we still just call him the crying child, despite the fact that
I call him
every
the bite
other character
victim.
in this franchise seems to get a name. Mike, Elizabeth, Charlie, even the missing children got names. So why is this kid's name left blank? Well, according to dual process theory, it's not that he doesn't have a name, it's that we just missed it. We've had the name all along, we've just been giving it to someone else. They suggest that the crying child's name is Cassidy, the name we found all the way back in the word search of the survival logbook. The same name that, for the longest time, we have given to the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night, the one Afton should not have killed. Not only that, but they claim that the child we thought was Cassidy doesn't even exist. For years, we've assumed that there are 7 dead kids, 5 missing children's incident victims, including Cassidy, Charlotte, Emily the puppet, and the nameless crying child. But instead, they claim that there have only ever been 6, with the final missing kid and the bite victim being one in the same, Cassidy Afton. It's a bold claim, but when you get into the meat of
It's weird because this is like a thing that has existed for the longest time. It only recently just got popular because of that dual process theory video. And I have problems with it. I think the main problem is just Cassidy being a girl. And, okay, so the thing about Cassidy is, it can be a boy's name. My mom actually told me that she works with a guy that's named Cassidy, a dude. And so that's not the problem. The problem is just that Cassidy herself, yes, herself, has been established to be a girl in the games before. Now, okay, so we know that Cassidy is Golden Freddy, right? And Golden Freddy is the spirit in the Happiest Day minigame. So, in the survival logbook, there's a page that is talking about what your happiest day, like telling you to describe your happiest day. And at the bottom of the page, we see the puppet giving cake to a little girl with black hair. And in the 4th closet, Cassidy is described as having black hair, and we've established by now that Cassidy is Golden Freddy, and in Happiest Day, the puppet is the one that gives cake to Golden Freddy. So that's kind of open and shut to me, honestly. I think, like, yes, there's the thing about, like, Cassidy having long hair, and that girl has pigtails, but, like, we don't see her entirely, so she could very well have longer hair that's just off the page, right? And, you don't have to have... having pigtails doesn't mean you have to have entirely short hair. And I think that that's kind of like all there is to it, really. Like, I think that's the main issue that I have with it. And in the logbook, there's the whole thing. I'm assuming that this is going to be brought up. I'm not 100% sure, though. I'm assuming that they will talk about this, but in the logbook, there's the question of what is your name, and then Cassidy is the answer that's given. And the faded text is what asks, what is your name? So people would say that the alter text is the one that's answering. But there's also the whole thing where the faded text writes my name on graves, and in FNAF 6, there's a grave that is missing, and the my name from the faded text is on the grave that was implying that the missing grave from FNAF 6 and this grave are the same, and the faded text is that spirit, because it's my name, it's not your name. It's like, it's saying that this is my name. So it's like, what seems to be happening is more like a conversation, not just Cassidy being asked what their name is, but Cassidy asking what the bite victim's name is, and then the bite victim asking what Cassidy's name is back. And then Cassidy answers the question, and then the bite victim may or may not. We don't know what the logbook is all about, you know? And also, I feel like by now, with Garrett being the bite victim stand-in in the movie, there's really no reason for that name to be different in the games. Yes, there's the whole Abby thing, but even though people say that it doesn't make sense for Abby to be short for Elizabeth, it literally can be. Like, there are people in real life that are named Elizabeth that go by Abby. Like, the Ab part of Elizabeth. Like, that, even though it's not traditional, it's still possible. Yes, it usually is short for Abigail, but it can be short for Elizabeth. So, like, that technically can just be the same name, so why would Garrett not be the same name? You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like Garrett being the bite victim's name just makes more sense, especially since Garrett is separate from the fifth missing children in the movie too, and there's no reason to have him be separate. And there's also the whole thing where Garrett in the movie doesn't possess anybody. He's kind of just like a roaming spirit. Maybe he could be the puppet, but like there's no reason for the puppet to there's no reason for the puppet to just not be Charlotte in the movies, too. It could be Garrett, but, like, I doubt it.
Their argument is actually quite
Moving on now.
So I went back to the drawing board and started mapping out the pieces myself to see if I could come to that same conclusion. Is the crying child actually Cassidy? Ladies and gentlemen, it's...
Hey, Tom, what you doing?
Oh, hey, Matt. I'm, kind of in the middle of solving FNAF.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure you have a theory that changes everything. A clue that we missed?
Kinda, yeah.
Perfect. Well, before you fire up the old golden Freddy thumbnail and then slap a dark truth on that, I've got another puzzle for you to solve. Lore-fi.
It's an ad.
If you want to...
We're skipping through.
Seriously? Do I really have to solve this? I kind of got my hands full with all the FNAF stuff coming down the pipeline. I was actually just about to do a multi on dual process theory.
Oh, I remember that one. It's a great video. But you do realize the M in Morty stands for MatPat, right? MatPat occasionally reviews theories, yo.
Huh. Didn't think about that. Say, Matt, I know you're kind of retired and everything, but seeing how Dual Process Theory's video was a two-person effort and you're already here, how'd you like to tag team this FNAF theory?
I mean, it's a little cramped in the recording closet with the two of us, but sure, why not?
Awesome, and now I don't have to change the theme song. Hit it, Yossi!
Leave your theories in the comments below. I'll pick my favorites in the next episode of
Morty.
First things first, it's probably a good idea that we recap the main evidence points Dual Process Theory has for the crying child being Cassidy. Their video is nearly 2 hours long after all. Who has
and
that
I didn't
much
watch
time?
it.
Well, except for you, considering you took over 4 hours to react to it.
Look, I'm retired now. I've got nothing but time. But I think you're right. So let's quickly recap, starting with the first major point, how we got the name in the survival logbook. Now, this book has been a cornerstone of the FNAF franchise since its release. Inside, we have 3 separate people speaking to us. Michael Afton, who writes in red pen, a spirit that writes in faded text, and a third person that alters the text of the book. The faded text writes the words "my name" on a number of the pages, and on those pages there's always some sort of weird number. Take all those numbers and turn them into coordinates for the word search, and bam! You get the name Cassidy.
It sounds so simple now, but I remember ripping my hair out over this at the same time you were.
But the key to the whole thing was one very important
I wasn't even part of the
my name. On one
community
of the
back
pages,
then.
the my name appears on a gravestone.
Yep.
Just like the gravestone missing a name, from
Exactly.
FNAF 6's ending, which, it should be remembered, released around the same time as this book. So it seemed pretty darn obvious that these clues were revealing the name of that final character, the fifth missing child, which is why for the longest time we've been calling the fifth child Cassidy.
And this is
I mean,
where dual
it is.
process theory throws their first spanner into the works.
You mean wrench?
Look, you chose a British guy to take over. This is what you
Spanner.
get. While yes, my name appeared on every page the clues were hiding, notice what's on the opposite page of the word search. A mirror. And under it, the spirit leaves a message. What do you see? Well, what's on the other page? A crying child using altered text in the word search. It's me, Cassidy. God, so good.
It is pretty compelling, especially because, in all honesty, the placement of that mirror always felt suspicious to me. So I really like them using it for their theory. But if Crying Child is Cassidy, then who else is speaking in the book? You need a second spirit to act as the faded text.
Well, according to them, it's Charlie, the puppet, doing what she's been trying to.
I kind of understand that, but like, it doesn't really make sense to me that the faded text would be saying things like my name, like trying to describe their own name, and all that to just be like them standing in for the bite victim to say what their name is, and then the mirror being used to just be like, oh yeah, this is just you. This is not me. I'm just saying this stuff for you. That doesn't really make sense to me, especially since the alter text also responds to this and says I can't see. So it just seems like it's more of a thing to it seems more like it's just to lead to the altered text more than anything. So like I can kind of see that evidence. It's kind of interesting, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that.
To do the entire series, help the lost spirits find themselves.
And again, I gotta say, I really like that.
I've heard that
Narratively, it's
before, and
really
that kind of
satisfying
makes
because it brings
sense, too.
together the three main characters from the franchise all in the same place. Mike with his red pen, Crying Child Cassidy as the altered text, and Charlie guiding the conversation as the ghostly faded text. It's cool and it feels complete, but is there actual evidence to support this, or is it all hypothesis? And that's not all. Dual process theory weren't just satisfied with Crying Child having Cassidy's name, they went further to suggest that the Crying Child is Cassidy, as in Cassidy is an Afton and the fifth missing child.
I mean,
on the
obviously.
gravestone, and the spirit within Golden Freddy, the only
That wouldn't really
spirit
work
inside of
otherwise.
Golden Freddy, as opposed to most of our theories where the Crying Child is one half of our best golden boy.
They also have.
I honestly don't even
First
think that Cassidy. I think the Cassidy's Golden Freddy. I don't really think the bite victim is anymore.
Crying Child is one half of our best golden boy.
They also have the evidence to back it up. The first point is that Golden Freddy doesn't speak in plurals. When you take a look at the one line we ever get from Golden Freddy, what do we see? It's me, singular, implying that there's only one spirit in
Not
there.
really.
And
Could
that's
you,
what we
if
see
there were to be multiple spirits, it would make sense for that to just be one of the spirits talking.
in the books. Throughout the series, there have only been 2 instances of animatronics possessed by multiple people. The first is the Stitch Wraith from the Fazbear Frights epilogues. The second is Rosie Porkchop from the Fazbear Frights story Together Forever. And while the Stitch Wraith isn't able to speak until the second soul is gone, Rosie Porkchop speaks while still containing both spirits, and refers to itself as ladies in waiting. It's using plurals showing the 2 spirits.
We're gonna come back to that point, right?
Yeah, don't worry, we're gonna come back to all of this.
Okay, great.
Well, yeah, but I think the Golden Freddy is a lot more of like an actual spirit than the animatronic. Like, Golden Freddy is ghostly, not because it's literally a ghost, but because the animatronic can't move, so it's kind of like projecting itself. Like, the spirit kind of knows that it's a spirit, and it's not like one with the animatronic. It just uses the animatronic as like a stand-in, pretty much. But the other missing children, like Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, they all are just the animatronics. They're kind of one with the animatronics. Golden Freddy, on the other hand, is not really. It's kind of like the spirit is kind of a lot more aware than the other ones. Not like fully aware, but they're a lot more spiritual. So the spirits acting on their own, that makes perfect sense to me, I think. And also that's the animatronic referring to itself as the animatronic, indicating that here the spirits are one with the animatronic. Like, when it's doing when the animatronic is doing what it's programmed to do, the spirits are one. But earlier, when the animatronic wasn't really doing anything, like earlier in that story, the first spirit was talking on her own. So what it seems to indicate is that it's the animatronics just have to follow their programming at times, but sometimes when they're not following their programming, they can just do whatever they want, pretty much. And I'm not saying this because I believe Golden Freddy has two spirits. I'm just saying that this doesn't really change anything, and this doesn't indicate that there can't be two spirits. What I think the Bite Victim is I think that the spirit of the Bite Victim is fragmented throughout, like, multiple spirits, and has to literally be put back together. Like, this is a theory called Shatter Victim. I didn't make it. I think this guy named Cuban Fancy made it. I haven't spoken to that guy in a while. I wonder how he's doing. But he kind of took inspiration from other theories and then kind of made his own theory based on it, and then a lot of other people started attaching to it. And I think that it makes a lot of sense with the I will put you back together line, because when the spirits are set freed in Happiest Day, then that would make sense to have the Bite Victim be freed too, because it's the fragments of his spirit being put back together quite literally. And if the puppet were the one to say that in FNAF 4, which I believe it was the puppet, I don't think it was William, if the puppet were to say that, and the puppet is the one that sets up Happiest Day, and that's what putting him back together means, then that makes sense, because he's bringing all the other souls together, all the missing kids, meaning all the pieces of his soul, pretty much.
I have thoughts on that one.
The second point they bring up is everyone's favorite FNAF 3 classic,
Happiest Day.
This is the final minigame where we see the puppet giving cake to the birthday child, surrounded by their friends in animatronic masks. Once the puppet...
I'm assuming he's going to say that this is Fredbear's flipped, and that is absolutely true. But like I just said, Happiest Day, the Golden Freddy spirit in Happiest Day is probably Cassidy, or at the very least it was originally meant to be Cassidy, but maybe like the Bite Victim took her place, or the other way around. But I think that the Happiest Day overall is literally for the Bite Victim to be set freed, like I said, by setting all the other spirits free. So, like, either way that works. Like, even if Cassidy was the Golden Freddy spirit, it makes sense as to why Happiest Day would be Fredbear's, like, the Bite Victim's memory. Because the other minigames are also the Bite Victim's memory, with, like, the tiny Toy Chica missing her beak, and there being a Toy Chica in FNAF 3, and the Stage 01 minigame, that is Freddy's, not Fredbear's, but it still aligns with Fredbear's, like the stage. There is BB's Air Adventure, which matches up with the kid, with the balloon kid. There's the Mangle's Quest, which matches up with the Mangle toy in Elizabeth's bedroom. And I think there's also the Shadow Bonnie minigame, which matches up with the shadows from Freddy and Bonnie on the stage. And the fact that Shadow Bonnie in that minigame starts on Stage 01 indicates that Shadow Bonnie kind of came from there, or at least this minigame came from there, which makes sense as to why the shadows are the ones that inspired that minigame, and the shadows are from that stage, basically, if that makes sense.
Delivers the cake, the child stops crying, puts on their Golden Freddy mask, and all the children's spirits move on.
Well, except for Charlie, because she's still got to show up in FNAF 6.
Yeah, because nothing can ever just be as it seems.
Are these guys aware of Molten MCI? Because the spirits aren't freed yet. FNAF 3's canon ending is the bad ending. The good ending happens, Happiest Day happens, but it does not happen in FNAF 3. That's why Scott said the answer is complicated, because both are true. The bad ending is canon in FNAF 3, the good ending is canon overall. The missing kids are still in FNAF 6 in the fun times, and the puppet is still there too.
With this franchise.
They're just all still there.
There is one thing that I think we can both agree is very straightforward. There are only 6 kids at this party. The 5 missing children and the puppet. If they're...
I'm gonna stop you right there. Balloons. Pay attention to the balloons. So there's five balloons for each of the missing kids, and then there's another one above Charlotte. There's a balloon for each kid that is in Happiest Day, and there's 6 of them here, and there's 6 kids. As the spirits are set free, the balloons rise up to indicate them being set free. If you look at the rest of Happiest Day, you can find that there's 10 more balloons around there. There's 16 in total, meaning that there are other spirits there, they're just not the focal point, basically.
There were supposed to be 2 spirits inside Golden Freddy. Why isn't there a 7th kid? Which ties in perfectly to point number 3, the glowing eyes at the end of FNAF 3.
This one's personal, so I'll take it. As a reminder, if you beat FNAF 3 without
He's
doing
gonna be
the
like,
minigame, you hit the game's
remember,
bad
there's
ending.
2
This
glowing
gives us
eyes?
a
Never
screen
mind, there's
where
not.
4 animatronics each have 1 glowing eye, symbolic of the fact that their spirits haven't been released yet. Seems pretty self-explanatory, right? But then look who we have in the back. Golden Freddy, with not just 1 glowing eye, but 2. This was always the backbone to the whole 2 spirits debate. The idea that unlike
There
all
really
other
isn't 2
animatronics who each
glowing
had 1
eyes.
kid's
That
spirit,
isn't 2 glowing eyes, because you can see the aura around the light, like where it comes from. Like if you look right here, there's the eye right here, and it's glowing like outward all the way. And here you can see that glowing outward, and there's no aura around the other side.
Inside of him, Golden Freddy was different. He had two, both the innocent crying child spirit and
like,
the
it's
vengeful
so
spirit
clear
Cassidy,
that
the
it's
fifth
that there's
victim.
only
It was
one.
a theory that was further supported by the books, specifically the Stitch Wraith Stingers, where we see an animatronic possessed by two spirits, a nice wholesome kid named Jake and an evil angry spirit named Andrew. One who dies in a hospital setting like the crying child, and one who dies by a brutal murder from Afton. I mean, the parallels are hard to deny. However, Dual Process challenges this by calling out the fact that if there were indeed two spirits in the body, why then do both eyes go out once you complete Happiest Day? Especially since we've believed that the Cassidy spirit lingers on to torture Afton in Ultimate Custom Night.
She
Only
doesn't.
one light should have gone out, to which I
Andrew
have one
does.
answer, retcon. But obviously that's a bit of a cheap explanation if we can avoid it.
Which brings us to Dual Process's last point. How can the crying child be the fifth missing kid when, very clearly, he's not missing? Like,
Yeah.
he's literally right here in front of a large room of people. Well,
I don't know what this explanation is. I don't know what Dual Process theory says, but I know a lot of people used to say that the bite victim was like literally revived, and I like that kind of adds up, but like it's a little bit weird storytelling wise, and I don't think Scott would have done that.
Assumption missing. Like, he's literally right here in front of a large room of people.
He's
well,
right here.
They make the assumption that this was all part of William's scheme. After the bite of 83, William pulls his child out of the hospital, and while experimenting with harvesting remnants, has the bright idea to stuff his son into Golden Freddy. Whoops! Bad idea, Will. It doesn't work, and the spring locks kill him, which is why we see Golden Freddy twitching in Ultimate Custom Night in the same way William does during the FNAF 3 teaser. This mistake devastates him, and in a drunken stupor, he lashes out at Henry's daughter, Charlie, killing her last. This then aligns with what we see from the gravestone puzzle in Help Wanted 2.
FNAF 6 very clearly says that Charlotte was first.
To solve it, you have to light the gravestones marked by the 6 dead
Because
children.
because Henry says that Henry says that he was the first one that was hurt by Afton, basically. It was a wound first inflicted on him. So Charlotte definitely died before the missing kids. Also, if the missing kids died in 1985, which they definitely did, then Charlotte would have to die in 1985 too, which doesn't make sense because in the books, she's very clearly said to die in 1983, or at the very least, that's when she was pronounced dead. I'm pretty sure she actually died in 1982. And she probably did in the games too, because why would that be changed? So, even though obviously her death is different, there's no reason for the timing to be different too. And like I just said, she has to die before the missing kids, so it being in 1983 or 1982 just makes more sense. On top of that, the bite victim being stuffed into Fredbear doesn't really make sense because why would that happen in 1983 or 1985? Because if it was in 1983, then that doesn't add up with the rest of the missing children, with the rest of the missing children incident. So why would there be 5 dead kids lured away? By the way, the crying child was not lured away under this idea, and it was just brought there, literally just taken. If it was in 1985, then how would any of that, like, have happened in the first place, right? Like, and how did Afton get Remnant before he killed anybody, unless he killed the missing children incident kids before the bite of 83, which again doesn't make sense because of the because they died in 1985. So where did he get the remnant from to keep him alive? Oh, and yeah, the puppet plushie, you have to put the code in 1983 in private room. Yeah. 1982 was a retcon. It was retcon in the 4th closet. Well, not necessarily, because Charlotte in the books did actually go missing. She was just pronounced dead in 1983. She actually died in 1982. She was just pronounced dead in 1983. It's just really weird because the bite victim still didn't go missing under this idea. Like, you could say that he was missing from the hospital, but not from Freddy's. And if he was stuffed inside Fredbear, then that probably would have happened at Fredbear's Family Diner. And because the Golden Freddy at Freddy's is a different Golden Freddy than the one at Fredbear's. They kind of coexist. Like, Freddy's is open still when Fredbear's opens up. So they coexist. They're two different Fredbears. Golden Freddy, the one that attacks us in FNAF 2 and FNAF 1, is not the same as the Fredbear that bit the bite victim. So, if he was stuffed into Fredbear, then that would probably have been at Fredbear's Family Diner, and if he was stuffed into the Golden Freddy at Freddy's, then that still doesn't really make that much sense because he wasn't lured away by Afton, and it also probably wasn't in 1985 because that's just a really big gap, and the bite victim dies right after the bite of 83. And that's another thing, there's the whole problem of the flatline. That indicates that, sure, he could have flatlined and survived, but that's just, like, really stupid. Why would that happen? And he literally fades away, too. He doesn't just flatline, he fades away, meaning he definitely died. And so, that just doesn't really make that much sense to me, because he flatlined while he flatlined. He was at the hospital, so he didn't die. He faded away while he was flatlining, meaning he died from that flatline. So, he was still in the hospital at that point, and he was not in, and so he was not brought to Fredbear's because he died at the hospital.
In a specific order.
So yeah, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Died. Chica, the first, she has seen everything.
Like, I
followed by
get it,
Foxy,
kind of,
Freddy,
but it doesn't
Bonnie,
make sense.
Then Golden Freddy, and finally, the puppets. Later, when the police start to investigate...
That doesn't have to be the order they died.
William claims his child also went missing to throw them off the scent that he may be
the problem with that is that Afton was caught on camera luring the kids. He literally lured them. He didn't just take them and kill them. He lured them. So, the fact that he was caught on camera doing that, according to the FNAF 1 newspapers, means that the bite victim had to have been lured, and he didn't just tell the police that. He was lured away. And also, Afton was the suspect anyway, so him just saying his son died too wouldn't have, like, gotten the police off of him or anything. So yeah, this doesn't, I don't think this idea makes any sense.
the killer.
Now, while I don't really love the logical jumps their explanation takes there, one thing I really do like about the crying child being the fifth missing victim, and therefore the only spirit inside Golden Freddy, is that it really does help clean up the numbers. For years, 5 was the magic number.
It does make more simplicity, but it also makes things way more
FNAF
complicated.
It evolved into 6 with the inclusion of the puppet. And yet FNAF
I mean, that was
4
always
shows
the
us what
case.
was presumably a 7th kid dying in the form of the crying child.
Don't forget about
Well,
Andrew,
Rogue
'cause
One
he
does
exists.
eventually give us 7 graves and a hidden out-of-bounds Easter egg.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8.
It always
Not
bugged me
7.
that there was never a gravestone for him in the FNAF 6 ending. I always just assumed that it was because he ended up...
Think about that for a second. There's not just...
never a grave
There's
does
not
eventually
there's
give
not
us-
7. This is 1. This is another one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But there's another one hidden right there. That's an 8th. There's not just 7. And this one in the middle is Afton. So what that means is that there was 8 dead kids, not just 6. So that also indicates that Andrew exists and the bite victim is separate from Cassidy. So yeah, that doesn't work.
7 graves and a hidden out-of-bounds Easter egg. It always bugged me that there was never a gravestone for him in the FNAF 6 ending. I always just assumed that
Well,
it was
these are the
because
ones-
he ended up being different. He wasn't
Yeah, 'cause
a
he
victim
wasn't
of
killed by Afton,
and thus
yeah.
he wasn't included in that final image. But if Crying Child is in fact the 5th kid, it helps explain why there was never an additional grave for him. Because he was always there to begin with. He was the one hidden behind the grass.
They also don't mention this in their theory, but in FNAF 3, look at the spirit who gets Afton's spring locked. They have tears streaming down their face, just like the crying child.
All of
We
the
never
missing
see
kids
the
do.
other spirits' faces. We're specifically being shown that this one has tears, revealing that this isn't a
The puppet
separate
has
spirit
those
from
too.
The crying child. They are one in the same.
That does not
Scott
mean
even
anything.
used the same model in FNAF World specifically for the crying child.
To be fair, tears are everywhere in the series.
Yeah.
though. I mean, the puppet is shown crying literally all the time.
So, are we done? Did they solve FNAF? Can I retire?
Well, also, like, also relating to the puppet, Charlotte herself also had those tears. And I think in what's it called? And I think FNAF 2, I'm pretty sure all the missing kids have tears too. Let me check something actually. I'm gonna look up, Foxy, go, FNAF 2, and I think that they have, tears, do they? I gotta find an image of it. Foxy, go, FNAF 2, dead kids. I'm pretty sure they have tears, though. I think so. I can't really tell. It's kind of it's kind of hard to see. But I'm pretty sure they have tears, at least a tiny bit. It's hard to tell. Actually, no, they don't. But still, the puppet does. So there's no reason to think that like Cassidy just doesn't, even if they're not the bite victim. So unsave them. I don't remember if other ones have them, but it's not just the bite victim that has tears. Charlotte does too, so the missing kids probably do too. And also, in the movie, the Foxy kid has the streaming black tears down the eyes too, which is obviously a reference to those missing kids having the tears, meaning that the missing kids also have the tears, so the bite victim doesn't have to be Cassidy for that kid to be Cassidy.
And now
Whoops.
2.
The time.
So, are we done? Did they solve FNAF? Can I retire now too?
No, you still have to solve Poppy.
No.
And Lorfi.
Okay.
And Ban.
No.
No!
But secondly, well, this theory is really satisfying from a narrative standpoint. It helps to simplify a lot of the confusing elements that have built
Not
up over
really.
the years. There are a few pieces of evidence that they didn't mention that might poke a few holes in their theory.
Oh yeah?
So Tom, what's this sound?
It's a
Flatline.
And when does the flatline happen?
Well, a flatline is typically shorthand to show that someone has died, usually in a hospital.
Exactly. And during FNAF 4, we see things like IV bags, pills, and flowers surrounding the bed. All things that you would see in a hospital. Crying Child was in the hospital for his injuries, and then we hear a flatline right after Afton says that he's going to put his son back together. Afton leaves, represented by psychic friend Fredbear fading away, which then leaves Crying Child
Probably not
alone
Afton,
in
but
the
sure.
dark. He's lost in the darkness. He's dead. He's alone. Everything about this cutscene seems to be suggesting that he died.
I mean, he
in this
faded away,
hospital.
too.
Could you potentially make the argument that William pulled his son
You're
off
missing
of a
the.
life
I think he kind of just ignored the fact that he faded away. Like that's, like you could say. Okay, flatlines aren't. I'm pretty sure in real life flatlines don't always happen. When you. Flatlines don't always happen when you actually die. I think it's more often when like something is unplugged, and if something is unplugged, then that would indicate maybe Afton just pulled the plug on his kid, which you could say he pulled the plug and then took him to Fredbear and to heal him and stuff like that, and then that's when he died. But then that also doesn't make sense because he faded away right after the flatline, indicating the flatline was to indicate that he died, because even though in real life that doesn't often happen, it does. I don't think it ever happens, actually. I think it's actually... I could be wrong, though. But in... it's usually in media that a flatline represents death. So the fact that there's a flatline here and then he fades away, that indicates that he died. So,
in the hospital and brought him back to an underground bunker where he's going to do experiments on him until he's able to bring him back to life. And that's why we hear a flatline here. Sure, you could make that argument, but
that doesn't
feels
really make
really
sense.
overcomplicated just for the sake of your theory.
And like I just said, he
Even
faded
still, if
away
he did
from the
do all
flatline.
of that, there's a room full of people.
Fading away is very clear, very clearly indicating that he died. He wasn't just brought somewhere else. He died from the flatline. He died then and there in the hospital, not in Fredbear.
That saw Afton's son get bit. That make it pretty darn hard for Afton to convince anyone that his son went missing as part of some random killer's murdering spree.
There's also that whole speaking in plurals thing I know you had thoughts on.
Yes, thank you. I brought up earlier the huge number of parallels between the two spirits inside the Stitch Wraith in the books and the two spirits that are potentially inside of Golden Freddy in the games. Now, say what you will about book-based evidence, but the epilogues at the end of these things tend to be very important for storytelling. I mean, we saw that explicitly with the reveal of the Mimic. So to focus on this character of the Stitch Wraith, comprised of two spirits across 11 books, yeah, that feels pretty darn important. And in the Stingers, each spirit inside the Stitch Wraith speaks in the first person. So it would then make sense for one spirit inside of Golden Freddy to say, "It's me, singular. It's me, the crying child, your brother." But let's go a level deeper. In the Stingers, the Stitch Wraith
in that
is
case,
made up
that
of a
works,
mix of parts. Andrew, the angry one, is established to not be able to see because his part forms the body. Jake, the nice one, can see because his spirit is trapped in the head part. As such, he reports what's happening in the world back to Andrew in the body. And what do we see happening in the logbook? Well, it's a similar sort of dynamic. One spirit asks, "What do you see?" And the other one responds, "I can't see."
Exactly,
it's a direct parallel. Even down to the happiest day.
I don't agree that the Stitch Wraith is a parallel to Golden Freddy, but like that's definitely like good evidence to suggest that there could be.
Stingers when Jake is given
or at least that those two spirits, or at least that those are two spirits and that they're just kind of talking to each other.
Move on and pass into the afterlife, but he chooses to linger back in order to help Andrew. Eventually, one of them moves on while the other is kept to Earth, held back by Afton. Sound familiar? It should. It once again parallels a lot of what we're seeing happen with Golden Freddy in the games.
On top of that, dual process theory reminded me of this moment in FNAF 4's minigames, where the crying child is locked in the back room with a Golden Freddy.
If you say that is hair.
Tufts of hair coming out of the suit, explaining this to be an employee who bled out. However, in one of our old videos, you made the valuable point that this head is just sitting too low in the torso. When adults wear it, we see their heads fully out, even when they're sitting. This is something that is explicitly shown to us in places like the graphic novels, which tells us then that the person in the suit here, it's gotta be a child. Again, we see this in the books. In Fazbear Frights, we have scenes where kids reach into the Golden Freddy
It really
suit
doesn't have to be a
go
kid at all.
inside. This is a dead kid that we know was put inside of Golden Freddy. Presumably, this should be the fifth missing child. This is why
no,
because
this is 1983, 2 years before the missing children incident.
The deaths of other kids.
Probably
You ever
not.
thought that maybe that's the answer?
What do you mean?
Well, is it possible that this story is actually way simpler than we, the FNAF community, have made it out to be? I mean, look at the scene. Like, really look at the scene. It is pretty darn self-explanatory. A kid is locked in the storage closet and literal tufts of hair are sticking out of the suit. I remember when I first
I
saw
doubt
this
that's hair at
scene,
all.
I overthought this thing to death, assuming that it had to be more than just hair sticking out of the suit. Maybe they were wires or tufts of suit hair or something like that, because this was 1983, and by all accounts, it was the first location. It was Fredbear's Family Diner, the beginning of the timeline. The missing children's incident didn't happen here. It was at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Clearly, these brown pixels had to represent something else. But in retrospect, the scene is pretty explicit. There's a kid dead in this suit. Done. Cut and dry. Remember what you saw? You saw a dead kid. We, as theorists, are so often desperate to search for narrative satisfaction. We bend over backwards to try and justify timelines where Afton is killing kids because of Elizabeth's death, or because he's trying to put his son back together and he wants to run experiments to harvest remnant from other kids. But what if he's just a weird, sick dude who just started killing kids one day? No overcomplicated backstory required. I didn't get to talk about this before leaving the channel, but in Help Wanted 2, if you light the final gravestones in a very specific order, you unlock a huge lore clue in the form of the Bonnie mask. This is the moment that basically confirms that we're playing the game as Bonnie Bro. But the order of the
not bro, just bully.
is very intentional. They explicitly give us an order of events. Chica first, then Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy fifth, Puppet last. It was really confusing because Charlie dying last didn't make any sort of sense. What about this?
It still doesn't. Exactly.
This gravestone evidence is what the games are telling us. It's also kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah,
in
but
FNAF4.
there's
That
not.
tuft of hair is
There's nothing that explicitly states that that's the order in the first place. It could just be something completely different. And also, the wound first inflicted on me, that is talking about the order. This doesn't, it could be the order, but it's not saying that it is. This is not explicitly stated to be the order. The other thing explicitly states that the puppet was first. So, like, I don't really see that making any sense. And this, again, like he literally just said, this is at Fredbear's, not at Freddy's, and this is 2 years before the missing children incident happened. So this can't be a dead kid. So, and if it is a dead kid, then who the hell is it, right? So, like, it's not like I don't think that Afton killed, kids before the missing children incident. I think he killed Charlotte before the bite victim died. But I don't think that this is anybody actually dead. I really don't think that that's hair at all. Because it just doesn't make sense timeline-wise or location-wise.
Believed. And really, why wouldn't we believe it? That gravestone timeline could probably be right. Afton was just killing kids because he could. He was a deranged serial killer.
Man, retirement really has taken a toll on you. But I also think I see
I
where you're going.
highly doubt that.
Crying child witnesses the dead kids in the suits and then gets bit by Freddy.
I think there's definitely a reason other than him just being a psychopath. But I don't think it was grief at all.
His son back together. He'd be furious at his business partner Henry because it was his engineering that did this to his boy. Then one night, an opportunity presented itself. Charlie was locked outside by some bullies, and so Afton, in a fit of rage, killed Charlie. Unlike all the other killings that were premeditated, this was a crime of passion, and so it broke from all of his usual methods. And that allows this new order of deaths that Steel Wool has given us to make way more sense. Chica
still doesn't make sense with the wound first inflicted on me,
not just of the MCI, of all the deaths. That's why Henry made Security Puppet in the first place, because there were a bunch of kids disappearing from the pizzeria, and Henry wanted to protect his daughter.
Which brings us back to the beginning. Where did we land with the whole dual process theory? Did they solve FNAF? Is Cassidy the crying child?
I think the answer is yes, but also no. There are two sides to
What?
this coin, right? Is Crying
Can't be
Child
both.
the fifth missing kid that we've called Cassidy for all these years? I'm just not sure. It would simplify a lot, especially the FNAF 3 minigames where there's only 5 kids. But then we see a kid already dead inside the Golden Freddy suit before Crying Child even dies. And then there's the dozens of people that watch him die and flatline at the end of FNAF 4, which would make it hard for him to be considered missing, let alone considered one of the missing children specifically.
It's true. As much as I like it from a narrative standpoint, there's just as much evidence against it as it is supporting it. Typical FNAF, you know?
Well, not completely, because there's the second side of this question. Sure, Crying Child might not be the 5th missing child, but based on what dual process theory presented, I think they might be right that Crying Child's name is Cassidy. William Afton, a deranged serial killer
I doubt
hiding
it.
in plain sight. Until
Because
one
Cassidy
day his
is
son
the missing
Michael
kid.
decided to play a prank that would kill his youngest son, Cassidy Afton. It has a nice ring to it, I've got to admit.
Maybe, and I definitely see it. It's just a frustrating catch-22, you know? We either get to have the crying child's name, and in the process we lose the established 5th missing kid name, or Cassidy is the 5th missing kid, and crying child remains as nameless as he ever was.
I mean, the answer.
Or you can just say he's Garrett.
Surely. The altered text opposite the mirror returns the spirit's questions with, "Who are you? What's your name?" And with Cassidy not being the 5th missing kid, that leaves the my name gravestone clue wide open. Honestly, my money's on the Foxy Grid. We never did solve it, and there's ghostly text written at the start. Maybe we should take another look.
Oh, no. There's no we here, my friend. I did my time with that Foxy Grid. This is all on you, man.
Oh, well then, I guess I better get started. It's not like I had a billion other FNAF things to worry about. Regardless, I suppose I should thank you for helping me out with this episode, Matt. I know Lawfire's kept you pretty busy.
Oh yeah, Lorefi. Nearly forgot that I was on here to promote that. Just got so caught up in the FNAF discussion. Anyway, I should probably get back to working on that. The team and I have worked really hard to make this project as great as it can be. And episode 1
Okay,
just
so
launched today here on
I
YouTube. So if you're in need of some
I
chill beats
understand,
for studying, working, or sleeping,
but I
make sure
don't
you
think
check
it
out
makes
the Lorify
sense.
project over on Spotify. We've got new music.
I'm gonna
releases
stick to the
dropping
belief
every
that
week or
Cassidy is
so.
Golden
Of
Freddy
course,
and not the
inside.
bite
So make sure you
victim,
follow
and the
us there
bite victim
listen
is
as soon
something
as they
else.
drop.
But
So.
if you want to level up your
I
experience,
think
you
Garrett
can
is probably
head
the
on
bite
over to
victim's
the
name
YouTube
just because of the
channel
movie, and I
to
think it
piece
makes
together
sense.
the clues to help Taylor solve
so yeah,
the
I'll stick with
mystery
that.
surrounding the
Lore.
You just couldn't help yourself, could you?
Hey, I'm retired. I don't get to say it that much anymore.
True. Do you know what else you don't get to say much anymore?
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory.
Thanks for watching.
Okay. I appreciate that they're skeptical about it and not just like blindly following it like some people do. Not like there's something wrong with agreeing with the theory. I'm just saying like a lot of people, a lot of like more casual fans kind of just blindly believe everything, without like taking a closer look at the evidence. Which like I get that if you're not like a super fan, but if you are a theorist, then like you probably should like just take note of the evidence and try to like make sense of it yourself. And I think most people do that, but I'm just saying, like, if you don't do that, and that's not, like, the best way to theorize, I guess. But if you don't care about theorizing, then it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, theory, I mean, I get it. I just don't think that it makes any sense. So, yeah, I don't agree. But yeah, that's the reaction. Cool.